Senator McGrath.
Thank you, Mr President. There is a small town up on the Sunshine Coast hinterland. It's on the slopes and the hills of the Blackhall Range. It's guarded to the south by the Glasshouse Mountains. It's called Mullaney. It's one of those changing rural towns. 40 years ago it was full of dairy farmers, and now a lot of tourists and a lot of people retire there. And it's a similar community that you see across the state, where there's always one or two people in these small rural communities who are the drivers behind the town, behind that community. And perhaps one of the tragic injustices of life is that we often speak highly of the people who are the leaders of the community only after they have passed. And for many years, the Mullaney community, indeed the entire hinterland community, benefited from the passion and the dedication of Mrs Joyce Newton OAM. Now, Joyce dedicated much of her life, indeed probably all of her life, giving to the community, giving to community groups, just giving to making her local neighbourhood, her locality, just her neighbourhood, a better place. And she was assisted by Greg and the children, Ty, Jennifer, Daniel, Carl and their families. And Joyce just made such an incredible mark on the Sunshine Coast, and in particular the hinterland. She reflected recently that her greatest passion throughout her life had been education. In early years, Joyce taught maths and science at Mullaney Secondary Department, and after her children arrived, Joyce became a relief teacher at what was then the new Mullaney High School. Joyce was one of those people who was involved in everything. She sat on the P&C executives of the primary and high schools. She restarted the Mullaney Community Kindergarten. She ran the blood bank at the local hospital, kept the Mullaney Guides going and the playgroup running, sat on the advisory group of the Mullaney Community Precinct Group. And that's just to name a few of the many, many groups that Joyce was involved with. These groups relied on Joyce, as did the Queensland National Party and later the Liberal National Party, where she led the SEC for many years. And I first met Joyce and her husband Greg through the Liberal National Party in 2010. Joyce was always on the front line of election campaigns, rallying members, rallying the community, keeping feckless campaign directors like myself under control. And I learnt quickly to respect Greg and Joyce, but in particular Joyce, because I'm not afraid to admit that I was slightly scared of Joyce. And it's not because Joyce was a scary person, it's just she's one of those people who had this ability to make you not want to fail her, because she was giving so much, and it was up to you to make sure that you could also give so much. If she could do so much in her life, so should you. Joyce loved to have an argument, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. Nothing made Joyce shine like a good discussion, a good argument, but it wasn't about winning. It was about what she could do to make people, to help people, to make them feel better, and it was just about helping people. We need more people like Joyce in our community. Now, Joyce and her husband Greg were a formidable team, and they're quite different people in a way. I don't know if Joyce ever swore in her life. If she did, she probably did it in the privacy of her own home, but Greg is someone who fills the swear jar on a daily basis, and indeed when you have phone calls with him, the swear jar is filled. They met overseas when he was a long-haired, hippie-esque dairy farmer from New Zealand, and she was from Ohio. And the story goes, the story that I'm telling is that they met overseas. Within minutes, if not hours, Greg knew that Joyce was the person he wanted to spend the rest of his life with, and they were shortly married. And they moved to the Sunshine Coast, where they became dairy farmers. And it was very sad that in early 2017, we learnt on the coast that Joyce had been diagnosed with motor neurone disease, that most terrible of diseases. And Joyce had been given just under 12 months to live, but because she's one of those people who doesn't take orders from anybody, she proved the doctors wrong. And then after more than 36 years of dedicated service to the National Party and then the Queensland Liberal National Party, She was honoured with honorary life membership of the party in 2017. And when she was given this award in Cairns, I can say that there was not a dry eye in the room. And earlier this year, Joyce was awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia in the Queen's Birthday Honours. And that was for her service to the community in Maleny. And it was very special, because she was a very special person, that the Governor of Queensland made the visit to her family home in Maleny to personally hand the honour, to hand the award to Joyce in the family living room. And it's very sad that Joyce passed away about a month ago. And it is not fair, and life is not fair, but it's not fair that Joyce was taken from her family and from the community when she had so much more to give. And while I know she's upstairs keeping St. Peter and God and all those characters in order, I know that her greatest monument will always be her loving, her slightly loud, sometimes rambunctious, blunt, earthy family. I hope the Maleny community and the people of the Sunshine Coast and the many members of the Liberal National Party never forget the selfless approach of Joyce Newton OAM. Joyce was everything so many of us in politics are not, and she was so much more than what I've been able to describe today.